Okay. Back to what I was saying. Now that we've gone over the basic upper portions of how to use this program, I'm gonna go into the more actual how to use the program parts of it. Okay. Basically, this up here, you can turn it off or turn it on. It doesn't matter. I keep it on because I tend to use these. But you don't have to. You can still do stuff without it on. Basically, with these, most people just use the modes and the opacity. But you can also use what is called textures and effects. Basically, let's say I have that for my picture background or whatever, and I want to add a texture to it. I can choose from all of these little textures, and I tend to make the texture big and as bold as possible. And now, with these, you can multiply it, screen it over, overlay it, make it a luminosity layer, which basically ups the brightness and saturation of whatever you're doing. It helps for making light. Shade does the opposite. Lumi and shade is frankly horrifying, but it's surprisingly useful for effects such as express bright light, like flashlights. And binary color does that. So most of the time with binary color, it comes out as one solid block of black, no matter what color you're using. And now what I was saying about the opacity thing. Say you want to overlay something, but you don't want it to be that bold. You can make it fainter and fainter and fainter until it's not there. Or as bold as you need it to be. Say you're using this horrifying. You can make it faint enough to where it's just a texture instead of being in your face. Same with... Oh, that's cool. And now, no texture, you can do effects. I don't actually know what this does, because I've never actually got it to work. Okay, it's supposed to be doing something. I think it has to do with the border. But, yeah, you can do paint effects. Or you can do stuff like this. These down here, I use all the time. Like I said, for shading. Say, I have Mr. Happy Smile Man here. Let's say it's Puck. Well, Puck needs to be shaded now. So I will take this purple color, and I will hit multiply. And I will find out where the light source is, which is here. And you can shade where the light source would leave shading. All without changing your color. Or you can set it to a very dark shade, and that takes the color and overlays and multiplies it, so that you get a very rich color out of your shading. I'm using a very neutrally valued color that is closer to gray than purple, but with shade, it turns more purple. With multiply, it stays near the gray. Overlay tends to also go more purple, but it doesn't tend to make it darker. It just tends to be like if you took white paper and put purple over top of it. Luminosity, light. Light. This is light. Lumi and shade, more purple. Screen is like luminosity, but not light, just where light would hit things. And then binary color, like I said, black, very, very solid boundaries. It's good for pixel work. There's also a pen in here called binary that does the same staunch, very, very thick, solid lines. Okay. Alright. Now to this. This is basically a map of all the colors you can make. This is for value, saturation, and hue. Say you want to get this value and saturation of a whole lot of colors. So like green, you can move it, same value, same saturation, just different colors. Oh, and see, you can tell that they're the same value and same saturation, because if you take the color away, they look like the same color mostly. Okay. This, you can manipulate the red, green, and blue instead of the hue, saturation, and value. Different types of color sliders. I prefer this one. Other people can prefer red, green, and blue. Oh, a note. Paint Tool Sci does not support CMYK. It only supports RGB. So if you're trying to make prints, you might have to switch it to CMYK in Photoshop or GIMP. Warning. I explained how that works. Let's reset this, if it will let me. Let's go black and white. Whatever. Swatches, scratch pad. Alright, now for tools. This is your rectangular select. It will select anything in a rectangular space. You click and drag. You can make it as big as you want, even outside your canvas. But it will only select inside your canvas. Lasso tool. Another select tool. You can select the shapes you need. It selected a heart. Magic wand. Tap. It'll select. This bugger will move whatever is on your layer around without changing it. But you can move it to where you need it to be. Zoom is zoom. This will rotate the canvas. It gives you more handle on what angle you have instead of this guy, because this guy only moves in certain increments. This you can move in 1 degree or more increments. Hand tool, you can move the canvas. Eyedropper is eyedropper. This makes your color transparent. So you want to airbrush, you've made this transparent now. See? It's transparent now. This, you can switch between 2 colors. Another way to switch between 2 colors, which is a keyboard shortcut, is X. Just hit X on your keyboard and it'll switch your colors. Good for if you're doing like a gray scale with 2 different types of gray. That way you don't have to play around with this and you can have all your toolbars out of the way. Okay. Normal or multiply. These are just pen settings. So if you got a color here, you make a new layer and you turn the pen to multiply, it does this. It'll multiply. Oh, look how pretty. Okay, soft tip. Soft tip. Medium soft. Less of an aura. Blunt tip. Less of an aura than soft, medium, and soft. And then hard. No aura at all. Good for just simple color fill-in. Size can go up to 500 or down to 5, apparently. You can go down to 0.7, but that is a specific number one that you have to select down here. These are all your brush sizes, by the way, presets, but you can also use the sliders. Okay. You've seen me messing with this. Minimum size. Do you want your thing to have pen pressure? Yeah? Then turn it down to 0. You can go all the way from 0 to 500 by pressing harder. Or softer. Want it to be sorta pen pressure-y? Turn it down a little bit. You can go bigger and smaller and be like that. Density. Do you want your pen to actually fill in the color or just be kind of faint? Behold, you can play with the density of it. And it can make your shading very nice if you keep it at like a 40 and shade softly, because then you can do layers of color and it's very pretty. Alright. Simple circle. You can change what brush you're using. Like a bristle brush tends to be nice for things like hair. And my dog is apparently going to ruin the video. But there's different textures for your brushes. A lot of these are preset. Some of them aren't. And this is textures. Look, it's birds. Okay. Advanced settings. 4 is smooth quality. You can go for quick layout or smooth layout. It writes itself. Edge hardness. Very hard edge or soft edge. Basically, how hard are your corners? Minimum density. Now this is completely dense for the minimum. Maximum density pressure, 18% for this because it's an airbrush. Not messing with that. Hard or soft. If you put it like that, it makes a very, very hard brush, which means it's not very light. You put it on very soft. See how the aura got a little bit lighter, and you have to press harder to get a solid color? That's what that means. Now, what these do, it tells you what your pressure does for the pen. Like for this one, pressure influences both the density and the size of the brush, because it's an airbrush. So if I want to have a very, very soft line, I won't press hard. if I would turn the minimum size down, like, I won't press hard and I'll barely get a line at all. But if I want a hard, solid line, I'll press hard and get all this shit. It influences both things. Okay. Now that we've gotten the basics of this down, we'll get into what different brushes do. I'm only gonna do a few, since I have some custom brushes in here. So just the basic types of brushes. Airbrush tends to be lighter and used for spreading around different colors and shading. It's very light. You can make it spread out like an air can. It's very, very nice. Brush acts like a paintbrush. Can be very, very dense or not so dense. Water, like a paintbrush, but with water. It speaks for itself. Tends to be lighter at the edges. You can also use it to blend. For instance, big blotch of color, big blotch of color, water brush. You can use it to blend. Ta-da! The red is overpowering. Why did I go red first? This is a modified brush. Eraser is eraser. The select brush and deselect brush act like a pen, but it does this selecting, but you can draw in what you want to have selected instead of having to rely on improperly calibrated lasso tools. Say, I want Mr. Smiley Face to have his face selected, and now I can bucket tool just in the places where I want selected. Marker tool acts like a marker. Tends to have a feathered end. Pretty simple. You can overlay it. Stuff like that. Bucket tool, bucket. It'll fill in whatever is, say, you have a circle. You can fill in the circle. Ow. Oh, for brushes that have a, basically a selection subject to it, like, bucket, you can change how it selects where it's gonna fill. For instance, if you're filling line art, transparency strict is good. Turn it up as far as it will let you. And you'll get rid of a lot of the lines. But if you go too far, you'll do that. So keep it sensible. Okay, now for these, your target. Working layer, layer you're on. Kinda simple. Selection source is in these. Say you have line art that you want to keep your colors in. You make this the selection source and move to this layer. Now, whatever you use with your selection tool, if it's set on selection source, it'll select using this layer instead of this layer. And you can make sure that all your color stays in the right place. It would help if I used the right color. Ta-da! And it won't go outside. And now, Mr. Smiley Face is bloody. binary pen. This is what I was talking about. This pen can only go so big, but it's very, very good for pixels because it's solid and very dense. Look how pretty. Blur allows you to blend and smudge all at the same time. For blending, I would suggest turning the density down to around 30 to 60, because then it'll smooth everything out instead of smudging it to death. Then we get to pencil brushes. Pencil brushes are good for line arts. You can change the texture of your pencil brushes. Like my ink brush, which I use for line art, is a pencil brush. It's just modified to be very, very smooth and very, very controllable. Meanwhile, the pencil brush I actually sketch with is set to have a texture, and it's not completely full opacity. It's still a pencil brush, but it's just modified. That's what a lot of these are, is modified brushes. And that's all the brushes I have here, actually. There's not that many versions of them, they're just modified to suit different purposes. Like, acrylic has the texture for acrylic paint. And for now, I think that is all. No, it's not. For some of the marker brushes and brush brushes, you have these sliders: blending, dilution, and persistence. For these, it tells you how well the brush blends with other colors. For instance, this one is pretty. It takes a while to blend in different colors. The dilution of it is set at 0, so it's very, very, very persistent in staying the same color. It doesn't dilute very easily. The persistence of it is just how easy it is to put down solid color. So this is semi-transparent when you just use the brush as it is. So it's not very, very, very heavy. Meanwhile, this brush blends very well and it's very persistent. So it tends to drag the color that it goes across. Okay, now to get into what these mean. With this, what it means is, say I have a big smiley face, but I don't want anything that I color to go outside of this color palette. Not color palette, color blob, basically. If I hit clipping group, that cements all of the pixels on this layer to stay the opacity that they are. No, that's preserve opacity. Okay, we'll do preserve opacity first since I already messed it up. But it cements all the pixels to stay where they are, meaning that you can't change how there they are. Can't be more transparent, can't be more opaque. What that means is you can change things like the color and add detail without going outside of the lines and adding to it. For instance, I can change the color, I can make it actually have pupils and stuff. Without chancing going outside of the color bubble. You look so high. Anywho, now, same idea with a clipping group. Now anything I do on this layer will stay inside of this color bubble, and not go outside of it. Which is great for doing effects, like shading. Now, I can shade without worrying about it going outside of the area that I've colored. I should really actually, like, make drawings for this instead of being lazy. But whatever, I'm lazy, let's see, what else is there to do? Oh yes, how to save transparencies. That's important. Okay. Say I want fake Mickey here to be transparent. What do we do now? Well, it goes into this little bar again with the export. If you export using a PNG, go away, you can save it as a transparency. This will come up. When you want transparent PNG, hit 32 BPP, which means that every pixel on this picture will have opacity. So everywhere where there's white that I haven't added white, I'll be able to draw behind. So let's open that Mickey and add a layer below Mickey. And now I have a transparent picture that I can color. This is how I make my line art. I leave my line art transparent, so only the lines show up, which is very, very useful for digital line art. And oh, one last thing. I mentioned the stabilizer and how the stabilizer is bae. Basically, this little guy over here is the stabilizer. He helps me make lines. Me, being a human with a pulse, when I try to make lines, they tend to be fairly jittery. Why is my pen pressure gone? What is this bullshit? How dare you? I'll be right back. Okay, back to what I was saying. There we go. Being a human, when I try to make lines, it's not smooth. My pulse makes things jittery. I can try to make things smooth, but because I am a human and not a robot, it makes things difficult having a heart. So with the stabilizer, what it does is it will slow down your cursor as it follows your movements, so your lines turn out smoother. You can be as light with the stabilization as 1, or as strict with it as S7, which is as strong as it goes, but it produces a fabulously but stable line. Look at how pretty that is. So curvy. So it leaves it easier to make the shape that I want. This also helps with writing. when I do my signature, I tend to go for S3, because it slows down my writing enough to make it look pretty. Look how swoopy. Okay, S3. Zero. And see, S7 tends to be too slow for my writing, so it makes things look cramped. So you need to find your happy space in these. Generally, for sketching, I don't use it. For cleaning up sketches, I still don't use it. Unless I'm really cleaning up sketches, then I'll go for S1 or S2. And then for line art, anything from S2 to S5 is what I use for line art. Because it gives me more control over how my lines are. Like, let me find a sketch. We'll go with this one. Sketch. With it at S5, it's a lot easier for me to make lines that are accurate. Now, I'm not saying that this will miraculously make you a line art genie, but it helps a whole lot, especially if you have hand tremors like I do. So, yeah, it's very, very, very helpful when you're making line art. And that's about it. I hope you found this educational and slightly entertaining, because I've been rambling for God knows how long. But I feel it is better than my last tutorial on Easy Paint Tools. I will be making more of these tutorials in the future, so look out for those. Have a lovely day.